Online for Authors. I'm chatting with Adele Royce, author of Slipper Girl. Welcome, Adele.
Thank you so much for having me, Terry.
I am so excited to have you. Loved the book. But before we dive in, let's do the quick little elevator pitch. What are the readers going to get when they open up the cover of Slipper Girl?
Readers are going to get a very wild ride and adventure through somebody's very crazy life. It is a thriller, so there's a lot of suspense. And I am someone who believes in getting a lot of action right in chapter one. So it's an action-packed thriller.
Absolutely. I know that this is a sequel. Summer Blood was the first. My first question is when you were writing Summer Blood, did you already know you were writing a sequel?
So when I wrote Summer's Blood, I actually, it's connected to my first series. I have all 5 of my books are connected by the characters and the story that she keeps continuing on. So Summer's Blood was actually the sequel to For Position Only, which was in my previous, my first series of trilogy. Yes.
Okay. So the answer is yes, you did know. You had in your mind said, I'm going to keep moving on with this.
Absolutely. I knew that I would at least have a second trilogy in this new series, which is called Neon Diaries.
Okay. Fantastic. That's something that I find really amazing is this idea of being able to write a series. When I'm done with a book, I'm done. Like I'm just done. My characters all go away and they, go back into their little hidey holes and new characters pop up. And I've been fascinated by the idea of how do you keep it going? So yeah, I'm asking, how do you keep this character going through 3 volumes where people want to still read it?
So that's such a great question. I've never done the stop after the book and move on. I guess I just get stuck to these characters and I am attached to them. And I found that my readers are attached to them. But what I do is literally, I'm thinking through the next story as I'm finishing the current one. So literally, I already have an outline of what the 3rd book of this series is going to be. But yeah, I just, it starts with just a question when I'm in my creativity mode of like, what if this happened? There may be a character that stands out to me in the book. So for example, Summer's Blood, my character, Skylar Van Ness, was a teenager in that book. And I found her so fascinating that I wanted to give her some spotlight 10 years later, which is what I did with Slipper Girl. So she's one of my main characters. I have 2 quite compelling, very different characters in the book. But yeah, I mean, it's literally just thinking about where the story could go and what would be a compelling, powerful story? What could I do with these characters? How can I torture them even further?
How can you make the adventure continue, right?
Exactly. And, as long as it's exciting and interesting to me, I know it's going to be for the readers. So yeah, I keep going. I don't know if there'll be one day where I'm like you and I'm just like, okay, I'm done.
I'm done.
Let's start fresh.
And it's interesting because I didn't know that's who I was. Like I didn't start out as an author and say, oh, I'll always be just a one-off and move on. Like, and I've had people even say to me, oh, this would make a good sequel. And I think, would it? Like, how could it? Like, I don't even see it. And so I don't know if there's like some class I need to take or, but it's interesting how creativity works. And yeah. And for me, it's kind of like my mind says, okay, we've completed those characters. And now, oh, by the way, here's a whole new set. Bam. And then they're in my head and they kind of drown out the old stuff. And it's like, okay, I guess we're moving on. So
wow.
A very different process.
It sure is. Yeah.
Absolutely. So let's talk about Skylar then. How did she come to live in your head and eventually on the pages? Like where did she come from?
So she in Summer's Blood, she was one of my character's daughter, and she was an extremely rebellious kind of person. She did not respect her elders. She was not, she was a difficult teenager. And I kind of created her based on the background of, her father. And Summer's Blood was very much about these two fathers who are brothers, who are like, have totally opposite children that are around the same age. And Skylar just stood out to me. I was actually not thinking about doing the sequel to Summer's Blood on Skylar until I just kept thinking about her, how much more interesting she was than anyone else. And I'm thinking, how could this woman with this type of attitude and the way she is just so out of control in Summer's Blood, what would happen to her 10 years later? Would she be like all grown up and, happy in her life? Would she be,
right.
Would she be
right? Would she still be a rebellious teenager, but now a rebellious 20s? Like, where is she? Right.
Yeah. Where is it? And that's kind of how that character was born. And I started to get into her head and figure out where in her background, really kind of develop that background. Whereas, we all with our characters develop them, yes. Especially if we're character driven people, which I know right. You are.
Yes.
We like to develop our characters, but I hadn't done, you make somebody a main character and you got to delve right into their soul and figure out in their background. And I found that was really how I came up with the story for Slipper Girl.
Yeah, I found her to be a very compelling character. So with her, we see this mother-daughter relationship, which is horrible. Then we see, they don't have a great relationship. I don't think we're not supposed to think it's good, right? Then no. we see the mother-father relationship. And although it's far better than the mother-daughter, there's still some big holes and gaps there. Some things that I'm looking at going, oh, come on, Dad. Because I felt like there were times where he wasn't emotive enough. Like she wasn't sure where she stood. And there were so many times that I wanted to scream at her and say, call your dad. Just call your dad. Like, what are you waiting on? Call your dad. And there's this kind of relationship. I'm just curious how the relationships came around. Like, did you say to yourself, the mother relationship is going to have to be horrible, the father relationship's going to have to be so much better, or did it just naturally occur, or how did that happen?
So, wow, there's a lot in there.
I know.
So as far as Skylar's relationship with her mother, it wasn't not good. They were estranged.
Yes. Yeah. It was horrible. Right.
She shows up and, there's an immediate bristling on the part of Skylar. It starts up in chapter 1. She gets an email and she's like, oh my, and she grew up in Amsterdam with this mother, but she was, relatively young as an adolescent when they became, her father came, and because the parents were divorced early. That's a whole other story where they were just, that was a terrible relationship too. But she grew up primarily with her father. And so the mother shows up suddenly. Skylar's 27 years old. She hasn't seen her for 15 years. And suddenly she's coming to Vegas, and she's where this story is set. And she wants right. to she's got this sort of manipulative kind sort of way of approaching her daughter after all this time. And, Skylar has some deep secrets. She's got some really, really, terrible secrets that she wants to keep hidden.
Right. And her mother being there just terrifies her that those secrets are going to come out and ruin everything that she created.
Right. And as we know, she was rebellious, and as a teenager, she had all kinds of issues, drugs, alcohol, this, that. And she's really cleaned herself up. And, her father runs the casino. He just got remarried to this woman who he's in love with. They're off in Bali, like having their honeymoon. And Skylar sitting there left with this dregs from her past coming in. To unravel her.
Right.
And, and so you were talking about why didn't she just call her dad? And, yes, most normal people would
be on the well-adjusted,
well-adjusted.
No,
that's the right word.
Yes. And no past to hide.
No past to hide. And when you think about the situation, and there's quite a bit of nepotism that goes on in my books, because it centers around the same family that I started with in my very first book. So these people have evolved over time. But so her father owns this high-end casino called Donovan in Las Vegas. And she's the CMO. She's worked her way, she's young. She's 27 years old in this book, but she's worked her way into that position by being smart and being conscientious. And, she's just completely someone who wanted to clean up her life. But now she's faced with, oh my gosh, and her part of the reason she doesn't want her father involved, A, he's on his honeymoon, B, they don't have a great relationship. She feels as though, because he's the big boss, he's a kind of a volatile person.
Right.
He says whatever he thinks. He's a chain smoking, like he's that guy that runs the casino and the hotel. And she's terrified that these secrets are going to take the business down, and take her down, take her father down, take the business. She's afraid of being humiliated in front of her friends and family. She's got and the seriousness of the what she's hiding. The severity of that starts to come through as you're reading this book. And
absolutely. You're like, well, that could definitely.
I kind of get it now.
Yeah. Even so, I think that there's so much of me that I had a good relationship with my dad, and I just kept wanting to say to her, he'll believe you. He'll come home. He'll believe you. He'll support you. And it's like, nope, she's not going to call him. Nope, she's not going to call him. Oh, she's getting herself in deeper. Yeah. I'm that person though, when I read, and you did a good job, because I'm sure you want people to feel that way. Right. And so I'm reading along going, oh, come on, Skylar, call your dad, fix it. You could fix it right now. And then she does it. And I'm like, oh, she's going to go down the wrong path. Yeah.
And I think too that part of her personality, and I hope this came through, because it is tricky as an author to like make sure that all of these things are adding up, and the personality is someone who would be very, very to herself and secretive. We don't see her with a lot of friends.
No, right.
The friends that she has are family that she found out about when she was 17. Like, they're not people she's really close to. She was an only child. She is just, so I the way I set it up, she was, so afraid of the truth. And
I think the way I saw her is that she'd been this difficult child, and she knew it. She had cleaned herself up, but no amount of cleaning got rid of what she knew in her head about who she had been. And she didn't trust anyone with that information.
Absolutely.
And because she didn't trust anyone with that information, when things came up dealing with her past, she didn't know where she was supposed to turn with that.
Exactly. That's how I set it up. And, but yeah, I could see my readers screaming at the book.
Yeah. Come on, please. So who was more difficult to write then, her mother or her father?
Her mother. So Skylar was more difficult to write. Britt, to me, the mother, she was easy. She was funny. I was
going to say, despite how horrible she was really quite funny.
She's funny. And I, I mean, just the outlandishness of her,
Yes.
Ways, and her, like the way she waltzes into a room and starts manipulating things is working against her only daughter and working against the situation was funny to me. And I wanted her, and I'm glad you said she was funny, because this story, Skylar is not funny. No. She's a very serious person. She takes the world so seriously, and she takes herself seriously. And she's so, and I needed some comic relief. And there's a few characters that I always pull in to provide that. And so I'm glad you thought there were some, because there are some funny moments. There are some funny fights.
Yeah. Well, and she's just a character. Like, yes. She's 100% a character. She's lived a really disastrous life back in Amsterdam, and now she's trying to kind of pretend that she's somebody different, and Skylar knows who she is, but she's fooling everyone. And Skylar just kind of stands there with her mouth hanging open, like, how is she fooling everyone? I know what she is, and she's just hysterical. I found her to be, like I said, despite the fact that their relationship is horrible and volatile, it's also funny because it's so over the top. Do you know what I'm saying? She is just, her mother, Britt, is so over the top. And I just kept thinking, I'm glad I don't have that mother. Like, whoo, that's, can you imagine going through life with that? That would be hard.
Yes. Can you imagine? Well, and now you notice the theme here. Britt knows a lot about Skylar, and Skylar knows a lot about Britt, but they're both pretending
to be someone else, right? Right. And what the other knows about the other clashes, and they were better off on different continents. I think they were doing fine that way. And this kind of like blew it all to pieces. But yeah, I enjoyed that. Well, how about writing her father's character? Was that difficult?
Well, no, because I wrote her father's character in Summer's Blood to a very extensive degree. And his personality was so prominent that even though I had a different protagonist, so to speak, which was Craig Keller, the character of his brother was just incredibly he's over the top.
Yes.
He's outrageous. I mean, just some of the things that he says. I mean, so those kinds of characters are easy. And he's also a very three-dimensional character, though. He's got a side to him that is, he's people see him as this sort of, like a tyrant. I mean, he's going around, he's bullying his employees, we don't see him until the book is kind of halfway in.
Right. We hear of him.
We hear about him, and everybody's afraid of him, aren't they?
Yes. Everyone's like, oh, I don't know. Like, yeah, we should probably call him, but you do it.
Right. Nobody wants the wrath of this man.
Right.
And, he is the CEO, and he of course had a rough life. I mean, Summer's Blood details the craziness of his own drama. But, in this book, he kind of comes in, he's coming kind of, but you aren't sure. You just keep hearing about this guy. And he's like, everybody's like, oh, I don't want to have that conversation, to your point. But, he comes in with some fireworks.
Yes.
When he enters the story, it's like, boom. Oh, wow. Who's this person now? And
he's back.
Yeah, here I am. And what I hope this, you can tell me, because you did read it. Because I find him hilarious. I find his character so funny. And
I found his character to be somewhat confusing, not in a bad way, but like 1 minute he's this tyrant man, and then you see him being like the big teddy bear to the woman that he's just married, right? And then I can't spoil it, but there's something that happens later on, and I'm like in shock, eyes open. You've got to be kidding me. Is this really what he's choosing to do right now? And You've got to be, yes, you've got to be kidding me. Right now would be the time that this is what you would decide to do. Like, I was like floored. And like I said, I'm not going to give it away. Everyone will love it, just so you know. But I mean, it was just very, I found his, funny, but more like, in some ways, it's like, well, no wonder she didn't call him. She has no idea which dad she's going to get.
She does. She has no idea who she's going to get. And that, I actually started that in his personality in Summer's Blood was consistent. And, you would see the teddy bear that you described, or the person who was sad, who just wanted his family and and was had a warm heart. And then you'd see him go off the deep end. So he was always volatile, and again, and if you wanted to dig deeply into it, I mean, maybe he had some kind of a bipolar issue. I don't know, but I didn't write him to be that, but I wrote him to be extremely emotional and emotional on each side of the spectrum,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because people often say to me, "Oh, you're too emotional." And it's like, I probably am, but I tell people to be as angry or as sad. I'm also that happy. And so you do see that in him, that ability to be all of those things. You just don't know which you're going to get. And I think that was the thing. Every now and then, some of the things that he chose, I was like, whoa, what are you doing now? So you did a good job because you kept me. I had to keep reading. I had to know what is going to come of all of this.
Well, and he does have some stabilizing influences around him. Thank goodness. He has Craig, his brother. He has his wife, Max. They are the voices of reason to him, but his problem is he cannot control his impulses.
Yes.
He's a very impulsive person and childish, and and having worked in the casino industry and seen a lot of different types of personalities, those personalities do exist in top level positions too. So.
They often do. Well, and some of it is that's how they got there. They have that personality that will let them claw and dig and be and become and show up in whatever manner people need them to show up in, etc. And then when they get to the top, they're like, I made it. And then they turn into these tyrants to everyone else. I mean, it's because they remember what people did to them on the way up. And so they just, I didn't find anything in there to feel like, oh, this would never have happened. It wasn't that kind of confusing. I think it was confusing for me because I didn't recognize early on. I mean, I knew that he was the really strict boss kind of guy, but I didn't see some of the other things. And then all of a sudden he starts showing all his true colors. And I was a little shocked. You know which scene I'm talking about, and I was shocked. That's all there is to it. I did not see that coming. That's all I'm going to say. All right.
Well, that's what we do as authors.
Yes, I know. Usually, though, I feel like, oh, here comes the curveball.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? It's coming. You're not necessarily sure exactly.
Right.
This curveball hit me out of left field, knocked me down. I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I was thrown away. It was good. You did a good job.
Thank you.
So you've hinted already that there's a third.
Yes.
Who will it focus on? Are you allowed to tell us?
So Skylar will be prominent again.
Okay.
But if I give you the other main character, it would be a little bit of a spoiler.
Then we won't do that
at the moment.
Okay.
So I'm conceiving of the story. I can say it's going to be based in Las Vegas again.
Okay.
You will see some of the characters from Slipper Girl carry forward into that book. What I usually do with series is I sort of diminish the roles of some of the characters who've been there for so long.
And bring up others, right?
Yeah. So like Craig and Jane, they were, of course, the focal point of my first 3 books because they were a romance women's fiction series. And so those two they appear in Slipper Girl, but their importance is not, they have I've diminished them a little bit.
Just a supporting role. They're there, but they're not.
Yes. Yeah, because now we have, but I did get a lot of feedback when I wrote Summer's Blood that everybody wanted to see more of DJ. They wanted to see what they wanted him to have a prominent role. So when I focused on he and Skylar, I feel like I gave them some equal spotlight and really honed in on their relationship. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I'm going to do the next book. So yeah, you'll see some of the main characters from Slipper Girl, and then we'll have some new drama and some new torturing to do to some new characters.
So you've mentioned that you think about the story and you have like a plot written. So I'm assuming you're more of a plotter than a pantser. Is that correct?
Great question. Originally, no. I was a pantser when I wrote my first series because it was so much about the relationships between the characters and particularly the main characters and their romantic relationship. But when I went to write Summer's Blood, I had to start outlining because the mystery thriller genre really it requires that.
I would think so. Yeah.
It requires some outlining. What I try not to outline so. I don't stick to the outline. Let's put it that way, because we, as you know, being an author and you're writing, you write historical fiction. So you have to stick to a little bit of a playbook there. You
have to stick to the history, but my characters within it, I don't write real characters in history. I take fictional characters and put them in history. So my fictional characters can do anything they want as long as it is within the realms of possibility of the history they're living in.
Absolutely. That makes total sense. And so with mystery thriller, I had to, what it is? It's just making sure that you don't give away the plot too soon, that, you have some curveballs in there, but some of those curveballs, the one that really hit you came at me from left field too.
You were like, oh, am I really writing this down? Right.
It's always a matter of like, while you're going through the writing, you have this outline sitting there, which is great because that's going to be the frame that's going to frame the story overall. And I've had things that one particular element of Slipper Girl, and it was a character that we don't see until later, but it was something that I kind of came up with midstream, and it was and I needed this character to help tie the story together and give it what it needed for it to actually be the thriller that it is. So I'll stick to the outline to a certain extent, but then kind of in the middle of the story, the all bets are off because you're sitting there going, oh, this is a better idea. Because I don't think of all my ideas up front. I'm not that.
Me neither. See, I am so much a pantser, and I have tried plotting. I really have tried, and it really doesn't work for me. The plot, I feel like, stifles me. I know people say, "Oh no, it gives you this freedom," and it's like, no, not for me. I feel like someone's put the bumpers up in bowling, and they're not allowing me to have a strike. I mean, a ball or anything. Like I can't think. And when I don't have the plot, then I just feel like my creative imagination is so much better than the intellectual Terry. The intellectual Terry gets in the way. I have to kick her completely out of the room in order to write. And if I have a plot sitting there, intellectual Terry feels like she's in charge. And intellectual Terry is a terrible writer. She is. She's horrible. And this creative piece of me that comes up out of nowhere is so much better.
I can totally empathize with that. I feel the same way. I was truly forced to do the outlines with this
I can imagine.
genre. Yeah, and I was not, and that's why Summer's Blood took me so much longer than any of my other books, because I was just like not comfortable with any of that stuff. I'm like you. I don't want, I want creative Adele. I want her in the room. I don't, it's like, that's the magic that's
Right.
happening on the keyboard.
Exactly.
And your imagination is better and more interesting and more expansive than a blueprint that you've said, okay, this is what it is, which is why I do. So I probably call myself half and half, pantser and outliner, because just because I was forced to have to do that.
Yeah, that's interesting, because the next one that I'm writing has maybe a little bit of mystery to it. It's still very much perk in my mind. I don't even really know where I'm going with it. And I keep wondering if maybe I'm going to need just something basic. And then when I think that, then it scares me, because it's like, oh, will I be able to write? Like, will I be able to write with that sitting over there? And so I don't know. I'm back and forth, but that's good to know. It's good to know that a fellow pantser has found a way to at least use this outline to guide a little. But anyway.
Absolutely. You can do it. I have confidence.
We know what's next, which is going to be the third book. Do you have a title for it? Do we know what it's going to be called?
I don't. It's sitting in my computer as book 6.
Yes, I know. I never know my title until well past writing it. I'm into revisions, and sometimes it's even been to my editor and I'm going, help me, I don't know. I hate titles. So that we could have a whole conversation just about titling things.
Well, and it's always interesting for me, because I always have a working title, and then I change it like right before I'm ready to turn it into the publisher.
Yes.
I'm done. But with Slipper Girl, I started with Slipper Girl, or book 5 probably. Yeah. And then it ended up Slipper Girl, and it just stayed. And that ended up be the time. And that never happens. So
yeah, I know it's rare. I'm so bad at titles. I always tell people I'd rather write a manuscript than a title, because how am I supposed to take 80,000 some words and sum it up in 1 to 5? Like, I hate it. But anyway. Adele, if someone wanted to get up with you, talk with you about your books, your writing style, what's coming up next, what's the best way for them to do that?
You can go to adeleroyce.com and you can contact me through there, and you can look at the books. You can meet my characters. I got a whole bunch of stuff up there. But yes, my website is adeleroyce.com. That's the best way to get a hold of me.
Fantastic. I'll have that in the show notes, guys, ways to get up with Adele. Run out, grab Slipper Girl. You're going to love it. And if you love it, then you're going to love all of the other stories too. So run out and grab those as well. Once you have, make sure that you do a review, because as authors, we would give just about anything for a review, right? And Adele, I want to thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you so much, Terry. This was so much fun.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.